to another episode with the Modern Framily, where we talk about all things friends, family, parenting, marriage, bros being bros, everything in between. I'm JD, by the way, and I'm joined with Mr. Aaron Thomas. Aaron.
What's up?
Welcome.
Great to be here.
And then Connor McAtee.
What's up? What's going on?
Y'all need to know these are my longest friends I've ever had.
Crazy.
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
No, it's a great thing. We've been friends for 13 years.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Which is crazy. We have been friends since 2012.
Yeah.
It's 2025 if you're listening to this in the year 2052. And
that's also crazy.
That is crazy. Like, what if our kids listen to this one day?
Like, we made it big if somebody's listening.
Yeah, for sure. The Modern Framily took off. But in this episode, we are going to be talking about how to have long-lasting friendships. And so when I was thinking about, like, hey, who in the friend group needs to speak on this episode, it was pretty evident to me that why not have the college roomies? Because, like,
it's an honor, really.
As y'all know, we have 22 people on this podcast. You saw them in the first episode. If you haven't, make sure to go check that out. But out of that are so many different dynamics. And there have been people who technically, like, we have siblings in our friend group. Like, there are people who have been friends since birth. But I think ours is a little bit more like relatable. Like, a lot of people have an opportunity. Hopefully there's a lot of people who are in college, they're in their 20s or they're in their teens or whatever listening to this, and they have the opportunity to make friends. And I think a lot of people I think there's a lot of things going on right now in society. A lot of people are lacking meaningful friendships. Like, they feel super alone, super isolated. One of the reasons why we wanted to start this podcast. But I also think a lot of people have friends, but they can't keep friends. Mm-hmm. Like, they kind of have to jump from group to group, or friendships, they get into conflict, which is inevitable in friendships. And then that is the end because they don't know how to have long-lasting friendships. And so I really do hope that this is just a fun conversation where you get to know us more and know our story. And I'll also just hope that it maybe just gives you some, we're not experts. Like, we're not the friendship experts.
I don't know. We're getting pretty good at this.
Yeah.
13 years is a while.
It is a good bit, but I just hope that you walk away going, okay, like, it just kind of encourages you to want to seek after more meaningful, deeper, long-lasting friendships. And so I want to start with just our origin story as the trio. We have other roommates from college. We love you guys. Shout out if you're listening, Connor, Barrett. Yeah, Joe Minden, Bradley.
Chances he listens to this.
Blake Farrell.
Yeah,
we got a whole crew.
We do. If you are listening, we love you guys. But we're the three that all live now literally streets away from each other. My backyard is pretty much on Connor Street. Aaron is literally
2 minutes.
2 minutes down the road in the same neighborhood. And that's pretty crazy to think how life, like, we knew what we had in college was special, but, like, I just moved to Austin in July of last year. And it's crazy to think, like, 10 years, 13 years later, we're like as close as you can get again to college roommates as dads and husbands.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about it.
And we're probably closer now in a lot of ways, just because there's a lot of things that have bound us together.
For sure.
And similar life
and the maturity piece too. I think that we had a lot of tiffs in college, and, like, it's hilarious the amount of tiffs we had.
The guys are kind of the drama sometimes,
but I feel like that's
you were the drama.
It's a totally different dynamic now. Just like, I feel like we don't worry about the same things we used to worry about, and so it's definitely a different level of friendship
for sure. So let's talk about, first off, I think it's pretty crazy when you zoom out and just think about how we all became friends. So we all grew up in different parts of Texas. So I'm from East Texas.
I'm from Central Texas, about an hour outside of Austin.
Central Texas as well, Temple. If you've heard of Buc-ee's, I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
Famous for that.
Mm-hmm. Temple's famous for traffic.
Traffic.
Yeah. You catching...
Which didn't come until after I left for college. But
yeah.
now it's definitely famous for
that. Yeah. When I think of Temple, I think I'm going to get stuck in traffic on the way to Austin. And we all chose to go to the same college, not knowing each other. So Stephen F. Austin, Axum Jacks.
Axum, baby.
Nacogdoches, Texas. Shout out 936. 5 years of
on a hill, baby.
Yeah, 5 years of our life, the Piney Woods. And I'll start with mine. I came from a small town, 461 people in Union Grove, Texas, and no one in my family really had a desire to go to college. It wasn't really like that where I was from. And I got really into music. I was a drummer boy, percussionist, band nerd, and
YouTube prodigy.
YouTube prodigy. Check it out. UG. Actually, I can't say the username.
Before he was cool.
Yeah, I'm not going to say the username. Please don't go look. And I was super into like drumline, all the things, which is so funny because like my East Texas redneck family, no one was musical at all. And I would go to band camp. So like, it was like right at the time of like that classic, like this one time at band camp, everyone always said that to me. I was super nerdy and I would get a scholarship to go to band camp at SFA. So like not knowing much about other cities or anything like colleges, I just knew, I go to this college during high school every summer for this band camp. I have a great time. So why not just go and do music at this, which is pretty smart of them. I think that's why they do it. To recruit high school band students. And so I was like, they're like, hey, we'll give you a scholarship if you come here. And I was like, sophomore year of high school, I was like, signed,
we're in.
I'm in.
Isn't SFA like randomly really good at band as well?
They are really, really
so
randomly great music school. And I thought, I guess I just thought I was gonna be playing like the xylophone the rest of my life. Which is like not.
Did you do 4 at a time or 6 at a time?
4. I don't know. Yeah, on the marimba. I was out here under the sea and all those songs. And so I never looked anywhere else. I was like, I'm gonna do band at SFA. So that was me. What y'all?
Yeah. So I grew up in a town called Burnett. Again, about an hour outside of Austin, and I didn't even know what Nacogdoches was. I had a buddy, I remember his uncle or somebody went to Stephen F. Austin. He was like, I want to play football at Stephen F. Austin. Actually, Dustin Keeler, who was one of my roommates.
Shout out Dustin.
And Dustin always talked about SFA, and I was like, what is this place? Know nothing about it. And I played football, as y'all know, and I had a coach, one of my coaches in high school, his college roommate, he played football at SFA. His college roommate was the defensive coordinator. I don't know if y'all knew that or not. Mm-hmm. But when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for school, he was like, well, why don't I send your film out to, coach, and we'll have him take a look and just see. And that, long story short, led to me being able to get on the football team, obviously. And that's what took me to SFA in the first place. Again, I remember the first time driving in Nacogdoches, and it was just me and my mom. Actually, it was me and my dad. We went on like an unofficial visit, and it was that weekend where like there was that massive snowstorm, like our senior year of high school. I don't know if y'all remember that. And it was snowing in Nac and the pine trees, and I was like, this place is kind of sick.
I was actually a freshman that year.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And there was like a massive snowball fight on the football field. And if you know the stadium, it's basically
a bowl.
It's like literally
perfect
a bowl,
for sledding.
Perfect for sledding and going down this like a slide.
Wow, I'm getting nostalgic.
So I remember, so I remember seeing like the pine trees, and the campus was cool, and just like the vibe of walking around and people going to the SC and stuff. And I was like, I like this place a lot.
Yeah.
And so
it really is your vibe, knowing you.
Yeah.
Like picturing you coming to, you're like, I could fish here.
Yeah.
I could play football here.
I did do a lot of fishing, which we'll get to that story.
and Nacogdoches is really a gem. Like if you're ever just passing through East Texas, type in Nacogdoches, Nacogdoches, Texas.
I had to remember it at Nacogdoches.
Yeah, and it's not Natchitoches. There's another town, I'm pretty sure, called Natchitoches.
Yeah, it's in Louisiana.
Yeah, and this is pretty East Texas, so don't get those two things confused. And then also, did y'all know it's the oldest town in Texas?
Oldest town in Texas, yep.
It is.
Oldest town in Texas.
If you've lived there, you've been told at least. At least
honestly, of course
There's
you
like
know.
sign, billboards.
Yeah, this side of the downtown square.
Oldest town.
I'm pretty sure the band is called like the oldest band in Texas or something.
Yeah. The oldest sound.
Yes.
The oldest sound from the oldest town.
Yeah.
The boldest sound from the oldest town. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they would be like,
That's
introducing. I'd be standing there with my drums, and they're like, the boldest sound from the oldest town. Put your hands together. And it's like, I was like, I am Nick Cannon now. I'm in drum line.
That feels like some drum lines.
Yeah.
So my story and how I got to Nacogdoches is pretty similar. Like, I feel like as an 18-year-old, you're like flying by the seat of your pants. You have no idea what's going on. So like the decisions you make are based on like very small things. And so I was a runner from Temple, which is a small 2A school, and I like had this desire to be a D1 athlete. I was going to be a D1 athlete.
Oh yeah.
And so I did, similar to Aaron, did a couple unofficial visits to D1 schools in Texas. And the first one was to Corpus Christi, A&M Corpus. I went there. Vibes were low. It was raining. The buildings were like covered in dust or sand and like rust. And so I was like, this place is out. So then I went to UTA, similar, like unofficial visit. It was raining. Vibes were low. Like people looked sad. And then I talked to my counselor at school, and he was like, Nacogdoches, like you can't go there in April. He's like, because the flowers and everything is beautiful. Like you'll be basically, he was telling me like, you're going to decide to go there. Like, so don't go to Nacogdoches.
Yeah, it's going to trick you.
It's going to trick you. And so I went in April, and it was like,
perfect.
Vibes were high.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Literally 75 degrees,
Yeah.
not a cloud in the sky. The team was amazing. And so went to Nacogdoches.
I have this theory that every person who goes to SFA, like they were like destined to go to SFA. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like...
Yeah, because none of us have heard, or maybe you had heard of the town because you were from out there, but like Aaron and I both, like, not till a month before I had visited this school did I even know what Nacogdoches.
I found out about it literally like
what's
6
SFA?
months before I was there.
Yeah, I feel like whenever you go, like it's like a lot of people though, I'm just saying like, I feel like they would drive in SFA, and they'd be like, I want to go to like UT. I want to go to A&M.
Yeah.
But there's a type of people, I feel like so many of us there were the same, of like something about it. You drove in, you're like,
I feel like there's two
I'm
types
home.
of people.
Yeah.
People that have never heard of Nacogdoches and people that love
Nacogdoches.
Love Nacogdoches.
Yeah, it's so true. It's not like and I hated it.
Yeah.
Like so many
You
people,
never hear that, actually.
Yeah, so many people actually would stay
Yeah.
and like make a life.
We thought about it.
Yeah,
We left.
like make a life out of living as a young adult.
I mean, honestly, I think that's partly our story, and like why we're having this episode is like we wanted to recreate Nacogdoches in a way.
Literally. That's such a good way of
That's a
putting
good
it.
point.
So we all come to this college, 3 individual stories, pursuing football, pursuing cross country, track, pursuing band.
From the
It's
boldest
together,
sound.
we were like Marvel.
The oldest
we
town.
were the Avengers coming together, and we all met. So I'll talk about how we met.
Yeah.
So we both were staying in the same Hall 16, the freshman dorm.
What a great dorm.
And I remember was it Fuzzies? We met for the first time?
Fuzzies? No.
Oh, I thought you came with like Blake Farrell.
Fuzzies.
No.
But
we met in the EC.
I don't even know if I know this.
Okay.
Well, I saw you. I remember the first time I saw you. I've told you this the other day.
Yes.
You were like, you were in the landing, which was the new freshman dorm.
The athlete dorm.
That was like
when I was a freshman, I had to walk around that.
The landing was like the spot.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember being in the landing lobby. Everybody's in there. And there's this entire group of track people, track girls, all the track dudes, all around JD. And he's like telling this story. And I didn't know him. This is like in the fall. And I was like, who's this dude?
Because I clearly am not one of the track people.
Yeah. Like, clearly he wasn't. He had you had a backwards hat with the little flow flipping out, the curly flow. And it was one of those like spray on, like it had a white. And
Oh my
it was
God.
Like spray on
From the
SFA. And I was like, this
From
dude.
the mall.
Yeah, where they have the little kiosk and you can
Yeah.
get your
Yeah.
spray paint. I got
It would literally be
SFA
like something you get at a carnival.
spray painted on a white trucker.
You were wearing this
You
hat.
thought you were so.
Oh, I was like, I am all in. Action
that's
Jack.
amazing.
That's the first time I saw you, and I was like, "Who's this dude?"
Yeah.
and that was it. That's like really, I didn't put any more thought into it. And then the EC after
We
church one day.
we go to church, and a lot of times, like freshmen, sophomores, they would walk from our church to the cafeteria for lunch, and we were walking by each other, and I don't know how it happened, but
I think we had a group. Like I think we were coming from church. We had a group. We had kind of some mutual friends,
and we all sat together.
Yeah,
But then we got into convo at the lunch, and then everyone left,
yeah,
and we kept talking.
we kept chatting.
So as we're chatting, I find out that Aaron was dating. He's a freshman, and he's dating the president of a sorority. And so I'm like, whoa, like, who is this guy?
With his white truck and his flippy hair.
Yeah, he was like a surfer, Texas guy. Like he looked like a Cali surfer, but
He
like,
was Yeti before Yeti existed.
yes, but he had this like country accent. But I was like, but wait, where are you from? Like so confusing. But also like Jack Johnson, like you could tell, like he listened to Jack Johnson.
That's like all I listened.
But he had a little like rough side because he listened to Blink 182.
Yes. And so we're talking, and I'm like, wow. He's like, you had walked onto the football team,
right? Yeah.
So like you got to like you went from like
I walked on in the fall, and then I got put on scholarship in the spring. So this was like right after I got put on scholarship.
Yeah. So now he's kind of like the man, and he's like the walk on to like full scholarship.
Hadn't played an actual down of football yet, but
but he was on the way. We all knew it. And we're sitting there, and you start talking about this relationship with the president of AKO, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And
yep, that's right.
And I'm just like, you sound not happy. Like you sound miserable.
Okay. So I was definitely
first time we've ever talked.
Yeah, this was first time we talked. I was definitely like not super into it. And again, we talked about fishing, so we're gonna come back to that real quick.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like was the last straw for me. Like by the way, if she's listening to this, she's like a great person, great girl. It just wasn't a connection.
We all were young.
100%.
Great family.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't working, right? I'm a small town kid. She was kind of
also a freshman.
Yeah.
Like you're acting like a freshman.
I'm like, why am I dating anybody?
Yeah,
anyways?
Exactly.
But that was like, I was always trying to like be in a relationship, which
we'll talk about that later. What was going on?
But so I had gone fishing. I had gone fishing one day with DJ Ward and Blake Farrell. And I fished a lot. I mean, I'm a small town. I mean, that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
He's Yeti.
Exactly.
Yeah. And before Yeti. And
I guess Burlebo.
So I'm fishing one day and I get a call, and it's like a Saturday in April. It's like perfect weather. It's the perfect day. And it was her, and she was like, "Hey, what are you doing? Where are you at?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm fishing with DJ and Blake." And she was like, "All you ever do is fish, fish, fish." And that was it, bro. Like that honestly, I was like, yeah.
His eyes glazed over and he knew.
and so this is probably not long after that we're talking.
The wound was fresh. Like, it was like the decision was like lingering. Like, I think I got to get out of this, but I don't know how. And when you're like the freshman, and she was like, she's president of a sorority.
Yeah. So she was a year older. She was a year older.
She's got her stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
She knew what she wanted out of life. So it's like, that's also not the easiest person to like end things with. Mm-hmm. So I feel like you just kind of needed a push.
Yeah.
So I was like, dude, you should go break up with her like today.
Literally. Yeah.
And he was like, really? You think so?
I can do that.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, you should go call her and break up with, or hang out with her.
Before that, you were literally like, you don't really like this girl. You asked me that. Yeah. You're like, you don't really like this girl that much, do you? And I was like, actually, I don't think I do. I don't think I want to like be dating her anymore.
I think I want to fish.
Yeah.
Fish.
So
we walked. Well, from there, we walked to Hall 16, which was right by where we were. And we started, just kept chopping it up and talking. And actually that day, this is a pretty cool story. I don't know if you know this. That day we talked about writing letters to our wives. And you told me, you said something about writing a letter to your wife, blah, blah, blah. And that day I went into my dorm and I wrote a letter to my future wife, and I gave that to Addie when we got married. That's an actual true story. I don't know if you knew that.
Why haven't you told us that?
Yeah. I'm going to cry.
That's amazing.
No, I literally gave that letter to her. It has the date and everything, like April 20th,
Did you read
2012.
it before you, did you read it again right before you gave it to Addie, or was it like sealed up?
I think I read it again.
Yeah.
But
You're like,
but yeah.
Dear future wife, I want to start by saying I love to fish.
Please let me fish.
Yeah.
No, it was, that's true though. I gave her that, and then I gave her a letter I wrote like on the day we got married. But that happened that day that we met, which was cool. Yeah.
So you go and you break up with her.
Yeah, I broke up with her.
Yeah. And that was kind of like the beginning of, now that you're a free
Now
man.
that I was
you're
single,
like,
I was like,
I'm ready to make
we're
some new
hanging.
friends.
Yeah.
So we became quick friends. You started taking off in football.
We started community group.
Yeah.
Or men's group.
Yeah.
What month was this, do you think?
April 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And so we also start making videos, which we can talk about another episode too.
Follow at the Modern Framily.
So that was our kind of how we became friends. And then we're hanging out I'm pretty much sleeping on the beanbag in your room because my room was trash. And we pretty much become roommates. Fast forward a few months later.
Yeah. So this was at the end of my freshman year. Summer happens. You go to Philippines, I think, with Tebow. And then
and then I can
come back.
Also like correlate kind of where I fit.
Yeah,
in the
like
story.
where. Yeah.
So I'm at this point, April 2012. I'm a sophomore, and I obviously don't know y'all at all. And then junior year. So my junior year is whenever Aaron and I met. So that's kind of where I fit into the equation. And
yeah. So this is a cool story.
it's probably
this is the story. Honestly. So tune in, dial in.
Yeah.
So
fast forward to in the comments.
Yeah.
Okay. So
now.
So this is like August or September of 2012. It was like the 2012, first or second week of school. I had a football game on a Thursday. And that weekend, I drove home because we had the weekend off. I was going to watch Jackson play at Texas and then see Addie. And I was watching Jackson play. I was really going to see Addie. And me and Joe Menden went to Burnet. I'm going to stay with my parents. And my mom was like, hey, did you know you have a cousin at SFA? I was like, what? No. How would I know that? Like, you never told me that. And she was like, yeah, you have this cousin at SFA. And I was like, well, who is it? And she was like, Connor McAtee. And I was like, doesn't ring a bell. And
meanwhile, I go home, I think the same weekend. Because at that point I was like lost. I had no idea what I was doing with my life. So I was home probably every other weekend just because I didn't know what to do on the weekend. And similar story, I was with my grandma and she was like going through Facebook and she's like, hey, this reminds me, like you have a cousin at SFA. His name's Aaron Thomas. And so we both go back to...
Did you know who I was? Be honest.
I still refuse to admit that I knew.
Come on. His face.
My boy knew.
Everywhere.
Let's be honest.
So anyway.
So my mom was like, yeah, you have this cousin. I was like, well, it doesn't ring a bell. Can you show me a picture? So she pulled up Facebook and she pulled a picture up and I was like, no way. This dude literally sits right in front of me in business class. Like we had like one of those auditorium 200 people business classes and he actually was the seat in front of me. And I was like, well, that's crazy.
Intentional.
Yeah. So Connor knew he was just trying to get closer. So
please talk to me.
So
I don't know how to talk.
That next Monday, just me being me, and I walk into class and I just reach over and tap him on the shoulder and I go, hey man, did you know we're cousins?
And I'm like, yes. Yes, in fact, I do know.
That's where like the record was like, it was like, you did?
Oh yeah, cool bro, see you later.
It's like, why didn't you
He had been like thinking about this like aha moment where he's going to get to surprise.
To tell you like our ancestors.
And I just like start weeping.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I'm like, yes, I do know.
Yeah. And you're like, that's weird.
I was like, so sick. No, but so we talked and then I actually vividly remember that day we out of class, once class ended, we met up in the hallway and like chatted it up for a while. And
yeah, at the time I went to high school with the quarterback at Texas at the time, David Ash.
That's right. Yeah.
And Aaron obviously knew Jackson Shipley really well. And so that was like UT football was like our
mutual
connection. And I was a huge fan.
Outside of the fact that we have the same blood, but that's, yeah.
Also, fast forward like 2 years.
Can I ask really quick?
Hold on. 2 years later, like we were living together, and I have like a poster of Jordan Shipley on my wall.
It's like my girlfriend's brother. And I'm like, that's kind of weird, bro.
Yeah.
You need to take that down.
Meanwhile, like we're good friends now. It's just funny.
It's so weird.
One thing I'll say too, just for the record, is our grandmas are first cousins, and they were like best friends growing up. And so that makes me and Connor, anybody can fact check this, third cousins is the way I looked on the deal.
Wow.
So, yeah.
It's like East Texas Parent Trap, or like switched at birth. Or
well, what's cool too is like, I was at my brother's wedding, like this is years after Aaron and I were friends, and our grandmas were there, and they were like chatting it up because obviously they're like,
that's so crazy,
best friends.
Yeah.
And I come walk up to their table, and they're like, you didn't hear this from me. Like you could tell they're like gossiping.
Yeah.
Like,
So why did you, where are you at in terms of like, because I remember then obviously Aaron brings you into the
lost puppy
to the group. And I remember thinking like, this is Aaron's obviously a nice, intentional person. So it's like not surprising that someone not like him was whatever, but it was more like, I couldn't even tell if you wanted to be people's friends.
No, up to that point, I was like, friendship was like always really important to me. And I was always a part of a friend group. I just think that this was the first time that there was like a different feeling like around y'all, like a deeper, like just like way more dynamic. Like the conversation was like not about sports or,
where were you at? Obviously we've talked about, we're all Christians. Like that's we all have a faith. We believe in Jesus Christ, like the Son of God. So that's not you. That's okay. We're glad you're here, but that's what we all believe. Like, where were you at? Because like, obviously we were all growing in our faith. Was this like a first kind of faith-based friendship?
Yeah, I think like looking back, like when I tell my testimony, like I always start like the conversion here, like when I met these group of people, because obviously y'all were all like-minded Christians, like figuring it out in your faith. And I was like not there yet.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize I wasn't there yet. Like I went to church, but had no relationship at all with God and Christ. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's a huge part of
I think that's story. Like, if we're going to flip this on like, okay, so how do I have long lasting friendships? I would say for us as Christians, like a part of our like belief is, I think what has allowed us through all of these years and all different seasons, like it has not been the most perfect little story. Like I think what has allowed us to persevere is like our anchor has been like the same. Like we all have the same foundation and faith. And I think when there are so many ramifications of that help friendships. Like, so when you are a Christian, like we believe in like forgiveness, like we don't hold grudges towards people, and we have unconditional love in our relationships because God unconditionally loves us. Like there's so many aspects of like our spirituality, our faith that have played a part in our relationships. And so for us, and I would say to you, like, if you're looking for like, man, why don't I have like deep, meaningful friendships? Like the deepest part of who we are is our faith. So I would just challenge you of like, what is that for you? And maybe that is a missing factor in your relationships, is like, it's hard to go beyond the surface because there's nothing like deeper going on in your heart and your life. So
when you mentioned, I think a good point within that is like struggle, like things that go wrong, like in relationships or in life. You have you have two chances to either submit and not move on, and then also the other option would be to like surrender and to forgive. And I think that it builds like a deeper relationship. Like it doesn't go past this, or it does go past the surface, if that makes sense. So like, I think friendship, you were saying earlier, a lot of times whenever things go wrong, like, I mean, honestly, like some people my parents' age, like they have a tiff and it's like they hold a grudge until they die. And I think that what's different in our friend group and why we've been able to like grow is because when we have tiffs, we have Christ to remind us, why we're friends in the first place. And it allows us to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think that's why we're 13 years in and and deeper than ever.
That's a good point. And I would also add, at that time of like when we were becoming friends, we were all on this pursuit of the Lord. Like, I think when somebody listening to this may hear like Christian, you think of like a Bible, at least my mind would go to like just a Bible Belt Christian. Somebody would be like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but like we were actually all coming from different backgrounds. You grew up Catholic, you grew up kind of coming out of the pastors.
I had just really, truly given my life to Christ this summer.
Yeah. I grew up in the church, but it was just a checkbox for me. Mm-hmm. And this was a time in my life where like I was, the Lord captured my heart. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the case for all of us, where we were coming together in pursuit of like, what do we really believe? Mm-hmm. And how does that transform our hearts? How does that change us? And I think we were all just changing together at the same time. And I think that there's something to that I think God does to like transform somebody's heart when you really understand what you believe and pursue your faith. Yeah. And I think that that's also something that was really binding.
We were talking about this in community group this past week. I feel like probably for 13 years, we've been in the same spiritual spot. Like, whether we're in a dry season, I feel like we're always kind of in the same, like whenever I'm feeling dry with the Lord or just like not connected, like I could ask Aaron like, hey, how's your walk going? And he'll say the same thing. And I feel like because we were coming in the same situation, like we were able to grow together, kind of like, I don't know, there was like this wave of like, we're doing this together and we're going to grow together. Like not one person was like ahead ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so that, I do want to ask back to the story. Do you think, knowing your personality at the time, if Aaron never heard that weekend that he was your cousin, how long, honestly, would you have gone without telling the guy behind you that he was your cousin?
I think if I didn't do it the first time, which would have been that same, I probably wouldn't have ever.
Just think for a second.
It's weird.
How it was up to Connor.
Like the butterfly effect of like, had I not known.
If we were first cousins, I'd have been like, hey bro, like this is crazy. My mom and your mom like are cousins.
Okay. I want to talk. I think this is another step.
But because we were third, I don't know.
See, okay. So I want to talk about this as another step of long lasting friendships, specifically for men. I think one of the reasons why potentially back then you wouldn't have done that is because you would have felt like uncomfortable. Because I think that would have felt.
Yeah, now I would. Yeah, totally.
Anyone. You would do that too. But it's because at the time there's like this stigma around men, I think, where it's like to enter into that convo with a guy you don't know could be like, bro, why are you like, they could be like,
bro, why are you
weird? Yeah. Or like, why are you telling me, like, I don't know you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of guys might potentially respond that way because they don't know how to be honest and real and vulnerable and all that kind of stuff. But I think that plays a huge part into how we've grown as friends is we're all we have nothing to hide with each other. Like we're very vulnerable and there's no barrier to like how we, like I am fully myself.
Honestly, it's freedom. Like it's freedom in who you are, who you're created to be.
Yeah.
And I think that the stigma again, like buries a lot of personality in a lot of people.
And so many people enter into friendships going, who does this friend group want me to be? And versus who am I? And so when they enter this friend group, it's a performance from the start. They're acting to fit the mold of like the vibe that can't last. So like they get tired of acting and they're like, this group isn't working out for me. I don't know why. These people suck. And it's like really the reason why is because you weren't even getting to like be yourself.
So outside of faith, like what do you think, like what's the ingredient there that like allows somebody to like feel freedom outside of like faith? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say like all people need to learn like who they need to learn to like themselves. Like who am I? Like what is my personality? What are my gifts? What do I bring to the table? And like, I think a lot of people, because they don't know who they are, they approach friendships taking. They're like, give me, give me, give me. Where the best friendships are, I want to bring something to the table. Like, I don't want to just take from someone. I want to give. I want to give myself, my time, my resources, my listening ear, my empathy. Those are the best kind of friendships. And so I think that's where I would start, was like, become very in tune with who you are, and like it. Like, know who you are, like who you are, and then be who you are is like, I think, a huge thing. And people are attracted to that.
Yeah, for sure. And we all know, like, that person that you talk to that you're like, there's just not a deep connection there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm being myself, but there's just not a deep connection. I think sometimes people try to force that. Like, I want to be friends with them, but there's just not, a connect. And I think, like, by the grace of God for us, that wasn't the case. Like, we were all so different, especially initially. Like, we're probably more the same now as we've grown over the years, but like, we were all very different.
Totally.
And at the beginning of our relationships, but there was a connection there, and maybe that was something God was just fostering, knowing that. But I think that's a huge piece too. It's just not trying to force a friendship that's really just not there. You know what I mean? But
so as the story goes, we all we were all going to the same church, and our church had this opportunity. If you wanted to lead a small group, you could. And Aaron and I started leading a small group together of 6 guys.
Yeah,
and 6 guys would come. You started coming.
That's what we invited Connor into.
Y'all had started it that semester, right?
That's right.
And me and Aaron met a couple months later.
So Connor was one.
I probably missed.
You were one of the early
2 or 3.
Yeah, honestly, probably 6. The first 2.
But Aaron and I would take this thing it was like our first ever Bible study.
We were taking it very serious.
We would prep, and then we would go into your room. We'd get on our knees.
Yeah.
And we would pray.
So holy.
And we would be like, God, please just bring someone, help us make sense. Like, we don't know what we're saying. Like, we don't know what we're doing. And like, help just one person becomes like a closer friend, and one person this touches. And I remember we just every week, it's so crazy now, like these churches with 6,000 people, and like, we just had hopefully 6 people, and you would
and
invite
3 people would be asleep on a beanbag.
Yeah. You would invite the football team. I would invite the band nerds, and it was athletes, fraternity guys, and then one band person, like Andrew Betcher, Bradley Crawl, those guys. And we would make break and bake cookies. And so it's we would put them on the little coffee table in this very guy dorm. And then one guy would come, hang, eat a couple of cookies, dip. We'd be like, we know what you're doing. He would go down the hall back to his room. One guy, was it Randall? Is that his name?
Randall, yeah.
He would play his phone game on loud.
Oh.
And we'd have to awkwardly be like, hey, Randall, we're trying to get
Randall.
We've already prayed.
Man, I'm realizing in this whole reminiscing of there's some random names.
There was some
random names we're throwing out right here.
For sure.
And he would play on his game on loud. And to awkwardly be like, could you
Ethan? Y'all remember Ethan with the glasses?
Yes.
Yeah. And he stayed at Grace for a long time.
Yeah. And then Bradley Crawl, for sure, every time
Guaranteed.
was gonna fall asleep.
Guaranteed fall asleep.
And so we are technically now teaching in a Bible study to a guy who's asleep, a guy who's wanting to play his games, a guy who left. And so really it was 2, Andrew Betcher and Connor, honestly.
And we would be afterwards, we'd be like, bro,
that was
the Lord is moving. It was sick, which is awesome because we just had the heart, we just had that heart for the Lord to move in any way.
Yeah. We were oh my gosh, Connor topped.
Yeah.
He
for real.
Dude, Connor's coming out of his shell.
Connor prayed out loud.
Connor prayed out loud
for the first time.
And so much happened in that. Well, eventually, they asked us the church wanted to try to do a first ever co-ed group, which were guys and girls doing a Bible study. It was not really a thing back then. And we were sure. So we our 6 joined with 6 other girls that were doing a Bible study.
Mm-hmm.
And we met, and long story short, that grew to basically we started in our house, our dorm, your dorm.
Yeah.
And we had to keep the door open because it was so hot. People were having to sit down in the hallways. So then the church had to give us a house. Oh, no. We moved.
We moved to Kyle and Katie's
house. Yep. And we started using that house. So picture a pretty good size. It was a 3-bedroom house.
Talking about Kyle's house?
Yeah.
No, we started in Kyle's house.
You're right.
We started in Kyle's house. Then when y'all ended up in the California house, that's when we moved there.
Because in Kyle's house, the living room probably fit 60 people, I would say.
Yeah.
And packed. And then so we had to move into our house that we lived in, and it was saying about 60, 70 people. I just remember it was so hot that we were we can't do this. Like, it felt like a college party. Like, you were literally shoulder to shoulder, but instead of carrying like beer, you're carrying your Bible. Like, it's like in these
people like sitting on the steps, like literally.
Yeah, literally, like fraternity guys are showing up hungover. Like, sorority girls are showing up just ready to go out after, because Wednesday nights was a big A. Last night at Bullfrogs, so they would all come to Bible study and then go get wasted at Bullfrogs. And we would do that, and then eventually it got so big that there was a family in the church who had a mansion, literally, and we would meet in this mansion, and we filled the mansion. Yeah, and
I mean, I think at the peak, like probably the biggest night we ever had was when your dad came. Yeah, and there was like I think we counted like 160 people or something like that.
And every week, adults from our church would come and they would cook meals.
Yeah, they provide a meal. They would
feed around 80, 90 people every Wednesday. And we would meet in this home. And it was the best, like, looking back.
I mean, it totally operated like a church. Like, we had 16 leaders. Yeah. And like each small group had 2 of the 16 in the group.
And we like broke it down. But we were also, as leaders, meeting. Yeah. Having our own little community on like Mondays.
We were basically like a staff. Yeah. And that was like what we used outside of like school and our extracurricular, like football. And we worked and like we did this. And like we would meet all these people who came for the first time at coffee shops. And like we were on this mission together.
Totally.
And I would say that is the biggest, like, if you look like how have y'all had the longest lasting friendship? Even when life took us in different states at times and cities, we have always all been on the same mission. Like, that has been true. Yeah. And it hasn't always looked the same, but I'm like, if you can find people, I don't know what the mission is for you. I know what it is for us as Christians, but I don't know what it is for you. But if you can rally around like, hey, we are bettering together, like towards something, whatever that is for you, that's what I think has also been a huge aspect of 13 years of friendship.
That, and also prioritizing time. Like,
100%.
I don't remember when in college a week where we didn't hang out. Obviously because we were roommates, but all, like, even the leaders within the group, that's those 16 people, like we were always making time for each other. And I think a lot of people that I talk to now that struggle for community just don't take the step of like giving up their time, giving up the comforts of their home, the comforts of like looking at social media or playing video games. Like, they don't want to give that up and also prioritize time with people that they're pursuing.
Yeah. And I think too, just like to add another layer to that is like that time creates an experience. Like, you're going to create memories and experiences that bond you, you know, whether those are good or bad, mostly good. But like, there are things that we would go through that would bond us as friends because we were committing the time. Yeah. Like, even when I got married in college, like me and Addie were like, still like, hey, we've got this much amount of time left together. Like, we're going to make the most of it with the people we love, you know, alongside of one another. And like really committed to that time. Whereas I think we easily could have been like, oh, we're married now, can't hang out with you, you know?
Yeah, and we'll get into it more, like talking about like how, like where we are now in life. But I think that is a huge piece to why we have strong friendships now. Is because at least once a week, most of the time 2 or 3, we're getting together, hanging out, having a good time.
Yep. And
enjoying life together.
That was 5 years in that town. Yeah. And 5 years of deep, deep, deep friendships. You know, for me, like, not only like how to have a long lasting friendship, it's trusting people with like the most intimate and hard parts of your life, like your thoughts and your insecurities and just like your realities, like your circumstances. And my dad and mom obviously loved that I had this group of friends in college, so much so that in that group, we told you that the 16 leaders met, and we met every Monday night to prepare for that Thursday group gathering. And one night we're meeting, there's a knock on the door, and it's a Monday night, you know, in our college town. And the door opens and I'm helping lead this meeting, and in walks my dad, my mom, and my brother. My brother lived in College Station, Texas at the time. And I remember looking at everyone.
No, this is exactly what happened. Kyle was like, hey, there's somebody at the door. Kyle was our pastor. Yeah. And you went and answered it because he knew that they were coming. Yeah. And you answered it, and you were like immediately excited.
Because I thought they bought me a new car.
That's right. You did.
And then it was like,
Wow.
I mean, you can talk about it, but it was like an immediate.
I knew.
He knew.
Cause yeah. So what ends up happening is I just saw like a look in my dad's eyes and he was like teary eyed, and all my friends are behind me and I was like, what is going on? And they take me into the kitchen and my dad tells me like, I have cancer, and he tells me, you know, I have 7 months to live. And
because at that point he had it, and
he had it.
And he was in remission, cancer free.
Yeah.
And it was after his 2-month checkup that they said it was back and it was aggressive and it was in his liver.
Yeah. And we didn't know, I think Kyle knew, like, just be prepared, but the friends, the leaders didn't know. But because we knew that Chris had cancer prior to that, as soon as we heard JD like wailing, obviously like devastated in the background, like we knew exactly
what was going on.
What was going on.
Yeah. So we go through all like the hard questions and like talk about close, like literally they're like pretty much able to hear the conversation. It wasn't a big house. And I'm asking like, why? And you won't be at my wedding one day and you won't know my kids. And we're going through all of that live. And then after we finish that, all my friends are obviously in there like crying. And my dad comes in and he sits all of us down, and he just starts to like preach the most fire sermon.
Yeah. It's probably the most unforgettable night, honestly.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. And I remember like sitting, y'all all were like hugging me and like holding me. And like it just, I don't know, like I think my dad knew, like I think a lot of people would be like, why did he tell you in like front of all those people? And I think my dad knew like he knew this would be like a 13-year friendship, you know, like he knew like I won't be here, and like these are going to be the people that are going to walk with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with his grandkids. And you know, that was the hardest, probably one of the hardest nights of my life, and it was with y'all. And we all in our own ways have had our lowest points of our life. And I think that's what I would encourage someone I share that to say, like, you can't just ride out the good with people. Mm-hmm. Like you gotta trust them with the bad. Cause if you don't, you're going to pull away and the friendships won't last.
Yeah.
Cause bad things are going to happen. Like we live in a broken world, and I know it's vulnerable and I know it's hard, but I think that's like one of the biggest things I would take away is like in the arguments, like you can't pull away, even though everything in your body is like retreat. You got to like stay in it.
And your dad, man, he just like, obviously that night bonded us in that way, but also that next like 9-10 months that he lived, it was like, we had some really awesome experiences, and we were learning so much from him. And you were learning so much from him and going through your own like hardship at that time. But I think that period of time was just really important for all of us, just in supporting you, but also just coming together and like learning from him. And anyway,
we could do a whole.
We could talk about.
We should do an episode.
I'm over here like thinking of like.
We should do an episode on Finish Strong. And then we'll tell you about that. But an event we did with him when he was dying. But we graduate. I'm going to like fly over this. We graduate. We both happen to move to Missouri for different reasons.
Hannah Cook, shout out.
Yeah. You move.
I had gotten married a year earlier.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Austin.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget the day, our last day in NAC. We went over to y'all's house. And just all looked at each other and just immediately started crying.
Weeping.
But laughing. We were like,
we like sweeping the floor with your mom.
God, dude,
and it was like
that was such a sad moment.
The house is empty. We were just crying.
We did.
We have a pretty epic picture of all of us.
We did. We'll post the picture. But we were crying and then laughing
that we were crying.
Remember, I was sitting in the car just weeping. And
forgot about that. And I was like, I don't know how to drive off.
And you're like,
I have done this for 5 years with these people, and I don't know how to like just now move states. Like, how do you?
Yeah, exactly.
And we all kind of, it's that season of life where you just really don't know what's next. Yeah. It's like a blank slate. Like growing up and going through college, you have all these steps that are like, this is what's going to happen. You're going to go to college. You're going to get married, whatever. It was just one of those blank slate moments where it's like, we don't really know what's next.
Yeah.
So we moved to Austin. Y'all went to Missouri.
Yeah. And I would say our whole 20s was one, just growing up.
Mhm.
Like we've been growing up. We got married. We all got married. We all started having kids. But everything was about like hopefully one day getting back to what we had.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy now. Like we're on a podcast together, living in the same neighborhood.
Dude,
and we all have, you have 3 kids, you have 2 and 1 on the way, and I have 1 and 1 on the way. And they're all becoming friends.
It's amazing.
And we probably should do a part 2 on this, like next season or something. But there's so much in between. And
there's
so
a lot.
I want to fly over just like the things I wrote down and we can be done. I think like how to have long lasting friendships, like you got to be like pretty low maintenance.
Mhm.
Yep.
So many people have such like needy expectations because they don't know themselves, like we talked about.
Yeah.
I think like we are some of the most low maintenance friends where it's like, but that only comes from trust.
Yeah.
So like I can be low maintenance because I'm always going to assume the best and trust you guys. So if I see something that you know hits something that makes me maybe like, oh, that felt weird, or it's like that's probably me, and like I'm not going to be that friend that's like, and y'all are the same with me, like, why aren't you texting me enough? Why aren't you calling me enough? You never make time for me, blah blah blah. It's like, first off, when you get married and have kids, there's a deeper understanding of like, we're trying to all survive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, you got to be intentional.
Yeah. And I would say, like, to me, that's like the measure of a true friendship is like you can pick up with somebody. Like we were talking, there was like a few years there where we probably talked like a couple times a year, maybe. But it was never, I never like wondered, I never even thought about it. It was like we could pick up and it was like we were in Knoxville. And I think that's a mark of like a great friend, like a really healthy friendship that you can do that. Not that that's ideal, but like there was definitely a period of time there where we had that. Me and Con saw each other a lot more just because of how our lives were crossing over more. But because
you eventually moved back to Austin, and I was the last one who joined recently. And then championing one another, I think in that distance, like I never felt disconnected from your lives. Like big moments. We always also, this is huge. Every year since we graduated, we're about to go in a couple of weeks. We go back to our college town, which another episode should be.
I know. I was about to say
what we do. Yeah, the banners deserve their own.
Yeah, we should bring them in.
That'd be fun.
Like our college grandparents and our kids' grandparents. I mean, and like we go back to our college town once a year with the other roommates we mentioned, all of our kids, and we have a reunion. Yeah. And I just never felt, we always had that annual touch point.
Yeah.
And we just championing each other. We catch up. What's hard, what's good. And we show up. Like if in those years when we were states apart, if ever anyone called me and was like, there was a time, again, we could talk about where like, I felt like Aaron was in like a life altering moment in his 20s. And I was like, I need to physically go to Austin and like talk to him and see him. And like, we showed up. And the last one I'd say, and like we're experiencing this now a lot, the most we ever have is like embracing inconvenience. Like life only gets more busy.
What do you mean, bro?
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Like life only gets more busy. And so like when we go out to eat, we are spending most of the time apologizing to waiters, picking up food that's being thrown everywhere. And like our kids are screaming, but it's like, it's inconvenient, but we have to embrace it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like, we're not going to ever get to see each other. And so like embracing that. And so those are just a few like tips that we really are trying to model and live. And it's had huge return. And so hopefully that's helpful for some of you. I think we should wrap up there. We can continue in the future. So
for sure.
Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you next episode. See ya.
Later.